Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salat. Hayya ala salat. Hayya al falah. Hayya al falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Subhanallahi walhamdulillahi wa la ilaha illallah wal akbar wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi wal aliyyil azim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقال الله تعالى في القرآن أنا تابع وعربية إلى إنجليزي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, the compassionate, the most merciful, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Allah, there is no God but He, the living, the self-subsisting supporter of all things. No slumber can seize Him, nor sleep. His are all things in the heavens and on earth. Who is there can intercede in His presence except as He permitteth? He knoweth what appeareth to His creatures as before or after or behind them. Nor shall they compass aught of His knowledge except as He willeth. His throne doth extend over the heavens and the earth, and He feeleth no fatigue in guarding and preserving them. I have a topic, I guess it's kind of intertwined or interwoven, and it's just a very simple topic. It's following the straight path. We say that every time we say Surah Al-Fatiha. Siratal Mustaqim, following the straight path. And on that kind of a subtopic, I want to talk about an Islamic intelligentsia, coming from the word to be intelligent. An Islamic intelligentsia and following the straight path. So I want to go to the Quran and I lose my page. Yeah, I want to go to the Quran. It's a surah number 17, and it's the first ayat. And it reads, "In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful." By the way, this is Surah Bani Israel, or the children of Israel. And it reads in this first ayat, "Glory to Allah, who did take his servant referring to Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Glory to Allah, who did take his servant for a journey by night from the sacred mosque to the farthest mosque, whose precincts we did bless, in order that we might show him some of our signs. For he is the one who heareth and seeth all things. Sadaqallahu Aliyyu Azim. surely Allah has spoken the truth. Now here in the Quran, this gives a talk about the Mihraj. This is the Mihraj that took place when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was in the sacred mosque of Mecca, and here's an excerpt, only an excerpt of what took place. And there are different accounts about this, and various accounts, but I like this one particularly because it gives it brief, but it's much more detailed than this. And you can go home and study this, and look this hadith up, the very hadith on this. It says there are different accounts of what occurred during the Mihraj, but most narrators have the same elements. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ascended into the heaven with the angel Gabriel, or Jibril, as you would say in Arabic, and met a different prophet at each of the 7 levels of heaven. So in the Jannah, there's 7 levels. Also, you should know there are also 7 levels of Jahannam, which is hell. And of course, we want to try to aspire to get to the highest level. So it reads as follows. On the first level, he met Adam, or Adam. Then he met John the Baptist, that's Yahya. And then Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus the son of Mary. And then he met Joseph. And then he met Idris. And then Aaron and Moses. And lastly, Abraham. After Muhammad meets with Ibrahim, he continues on to meet Allah without Jibril. So he's meeting in front of Allah without Jibril being present. Allah tells Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that his people must pray 50 times a day. That's 50. 50 times a day. Whereas Muhammad descends back to the earth, he meets up with Musa, or Moses alayhi salam, who tells Muhammad, go back to Allah and ask for fewer prayers, because 50 is too many. In other words, Moses had experience with his people already. And he know that telling them what to do and following Allah's command wasn't easy for them. So he tells the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that 50 is too many. So Muhammad goes between Moses and God 9 times. He goes back and forth, and each time he goes back, Allah says, okay, he lowers it, and he lowers it 9 times until the prayers are reduced to the 5 daily prayers, and we know what they are, which Allah will reward tenfold when you do those prayers. Then again, Moses told Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to ask for even less, but Muhammad felt ashamed and said that even with lesser prayer times, his followers might not even perform diligently, and said he is thankful for the 5. So here's the situation, and I do this because Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a visionary. Now we know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the prophet, but along with being the prophet of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was an administrator. He handled all the monies that came in. So he was a treasurer. He had treasurers to do this. He had the Sahabas that were there, and they had various duties. Like we have a board, or we have people who are auxiliary, people who help us do certain things. But he had the Sahabas there, and he would consult with them, and he would consult with women. He consulted with his wife quite often, with Khadijah. Very consulted with Khadijah. I mean, the first consultation he had was with a woman. We know the story. I don't have to go into the details. When Allah told him to pronounce, to proclaim, to profess this religion, he said, Iqra. Now, Prophet didn't know what was going on then. And after he was squeezed 3 times and he went home to his wife, crying and shaking and shivering, he asked her for certain advice. And of course, she took him to her uncle, who was a sage, a Christian sage who saw this vision about Muhammad coming, and he took the wife. And he took much advice from her, and he took advice even from his youngest wife, Aisha, radiallahu anha. So Khadijah and Aisha gave the Prophet much advice, that he had. As a matter of fact, Aisha, there are more recordings of hadith of Aisha, radiallahu anha, than any other person, male or female. You hear about Abu Hurairah, Abdul Rahman, and they have authentic hadith. But she had more report, and she stated that the Prophet Muhammad, as I said to you before, he was the walking Quran. The walking Quran. So now, why am I giving this portion? It's in the Quran, and it's explained more elaborately in the hadith about this mihraj that he had. It's a vision. And you hear about people in life, leadership, yourselves, you have visions, and I don't want to sound spooky, but I have visions of things that I'm thinking about, and I go to bed at night, and I wake up, and I can't remember what the dream was, but it was a dream about something. And a lot of you were in my dreams. Not to sound even spookier, but then I dream about people that have passed on and people that have given me information. So dreams are real. Dreams are so real, even people who dream so much, they use them for other causes, They dream numbers and play numbers. Oh, I saw 355. 555 was my number. But the point is that dreams are real because they're happening in the subconscious. The subconscious mind is still working. You're asleep and your body is resting, but your mind is still working on certain things. Okay, let me go fast forward. So the Prophet Muhammad had this dream, but they weren't only dreams for him, they were revelations. And so that's where the revelation came for him to pray, for us to pray 5 times. And it's here in the Quran, in the verse that I just read, and he elaborated more in the hadith. When we look at any organization, religious organization, business organization, social organization, sports organization, or entertainment, you always have people there who have a vision. And in that vision, and I'm kind of spinning this off the Prophet Muhammad and his vision and the night journey he had, because some people think that, oh man, okay, the Prophet Muhammad, so there was some guy on a flying carpet somehow, and he met this angel with 2 big wings and took him from the far place it mentions in the Quran. That's referring to Masjid Aqsa, that's in that's called the Dome of the Rock. That's in Israel, Palestine. It's in Palestine now, and the big mosque is there, Masjid al-Aqsa. And matter of fact, Masjid al-Aqsa is the 3rd holiest place for the Muslims. First is Masjid Haram, and Masjid Haram is the masjid in Mecca, and the second Masjid Haram is the mosque where the Prophet, they call it the Prophet's Mosque, Masjid al-Nabi. That's inside Medina, was once called Yathrib. And then the third is in Palestine, okay? And it's called the Dome of the Rock because inside the mosque, it was built upon a rock, and it stated that the Prophet Muhammad ascended to the 7 heavens at that time, and he saw all the prophets. Also, not here, but in Hadith, the Prophet Muhammad led all of them in prayer, all that I mentioned to you earlier. They made salah right there and bowed down, and he led all of them in prayer. So now, you look at it, this had to be a vision because all the people that I mentioned, or all that were mentioned here in the Quran and in the Hadith that I mentioned, they all preceded the Prophet Muhammad, and they were all dead. They had made transition. But But the Prophet Muhammad made this transition into heaven. Of course, they call it a night dream or whatever it is, etc. So, as we look at leadership today and throughout our lives, some of us were born most of us were born maybe as baby boomers, some pre-baby boomers, etc., World War babies or whatever it is. And we've seen a lot of things in our lives. We passed through life and we had different stages in our life. And in each stage, you learn something. Just think about every decade of your life. When you were from your first birth to 7 years old, a lot of learning happens. You learn how to read. You learn how to write. Your mother teaches you how to hold a fork. You learn how, you're learning manners. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. You're knowing there are rules that are coming at you in those formative years. Then you reach a time in your life from 7 to 14. Now you're in puberty. Oh, your body's going through all kind of changes. What's this that's happening? Women are saying, the women can start much earlier than the men. What's happening in my body? This development. And things are happening. I'm feeling strange, I'm getting sick, And the men a little bit later, they may be 14 or 15 or 16. What's going on here? What's happening? And you're in a confused state because you learned the things that your parents told you, but now you're getting other outside forces. Your friends, the people you're around, etc. Then you get past that. Now let's look at 21. Okay, well, here in the United States at 21, you're not a voter, but then they changed it. You're down to 18, you're a voter. You've had some kind of training somewhere on a job, or you've gone to college, had a little college, or you went to some trade or training school, and you're developing more information. You're setting up a career. You're setting up yourself maybe to get married and have children or whatever it is. Now you're learning how to be a head of a household, and you're having codependency between a husband and a wife, etc. 28 comes, 35. Now you made some mistakes in life, but along that way, you look back and you can remember what mistakes you made. Now you're about 42. Wow, they got a saying in the world now, in the United States, well, life begins at 40. You've done so many things. I don't know who came up with that saying, but they say life begins at 40. With 40 years old, you're actually middle-aged. Now people don't want to admit that they're middle-aged. They figure that's old. But you're in a middle age where you've had so much behind you that you've learned, but you have so much ahead of you to learn. So you're at a threshold. I got this. You can give advice now. You're at the age now. You can give advice. Maybe some of your children are grown now, or they're teenagers, or you're an aunt or uncle, whatever it is, and you're giving them advice, and you're giving young people advice. You're a mentor now because you've been through what they've been through. Then you go to another 7 years, and now you're at 49 years old. Now that's a significant number. Another milestone. It talks about that in the Bible, 49 and 50. You hear all these numbers and stuff like that. And let's go back to 40 for a minute. You know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was 40 years old when he received revelation. Think about that. 40 years old when Jibreel came to him and told him to read, proclaim this religion to the whole world. Moses, 40 years old, he came off that mountain and he had salt and pepper hair now. He saw something. He wanted to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said, well, no, God said, Allah told him, take off your shoes. He sees a burning bush and he says, well, can I see you? He said, no, you can't see me. The light was so bright. Allah's light was so bright that he had to close his eyes. He couldn't look at that light. Proof again that Allah is an unseen God. Unseen to us. We don't know what Allah looks like, but we know the reflections of Allah. By the wind, the moon, the sun, the stars, all the creation we see, we know that Allah, man can't create a seed. They can do all kinds of generic engineering they can do. But he can't create a seed. They can try to create lightning, but they can't. They do it in the movies. For a little patch of, they can create a rainstorm to show you a movie or put the sun out, artificial. But they can't create anything like the sun or like the solar system. Okay? This number 40, how significant it is again. Now, Isa ibn Maryam, it's not necessarily in the Quran, but it's in other scriptures, where he went away for a while, 40 days, fasted and all that kind of stuff. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Then he comes out of the situation and he finds the disciples sleeping. He said, look, don't go to sleep, man. Keep watch. What do it mean to keep watch? It said it meant more than just meant not go to sleep. It meant be watchful of your prayers. Be watchful of who Allah is, etc. But he came back and they all sleeping. So you see, this number 40 is getting back to number 4, very significant to us about what we learned and what we have to learn. And then you go on into numbers, and you see the more you learn, now you're a junior senior. You're a junior senior, I like that terminology. It reminded my father one time. I got to tell you this little story. I'm a storyteller. One day I was meeting with my father. My father's already retired. He was a retired cook, And he liked to gamble, so that was his thing. He had a big gambling device. He'd gamble with a lot of money, then he'd gamble and lose a lot of money. Land, win and lose, win and lose. But he was a gambler. And so I went to visit him. He retired in Atlantic City. He liked to gamble so much. So now he's in Atlantic City, and he's got a little short order cook. He's not doing the chef thing and stuff like that. So now he got a little side job as a desk clerk at the senior citizen place where he lives. So he told me, he said, look, Marty, I'm tired of all these old folks. He was 62, junior senior. He just come into seniorhood, right? And he said, I'm tired of all these old folks here. They're telling me to go buy them liquor, go buy them cigarettes, run errands for them. They owe me money until their next check comes. Can't they manage their money? I said, well, they don't have the money you made, Dad. He said, I'm tired of this. I said, you can run around, father or dad, because you're a junior senior. That's why. You still got energy. So a lot of us here today, we're junior seniors. Not in age, but in our faith. We're still juniors. We're in our faith. I mean, we've come here together to get this. We're junior seniors. We've learned quite a bit. And we'll still have an open-mindedness to continue to learn more. So we'll always be junior seniors for the rest of our lives, as long as we're open to learn. When you stop, then that's it. So, visionaries. So you have visions too. And then we see visions that have come about from our leadership. And we got to go back, not just to slavery, because African American history didn't start with slavery. It started way before that. We had men like Mansa Musa, who traveled from he was king of the Mali and the Songhai Empire. And Mansa Musa traveled all across Africa with hundreds of followers all the way to make the pilgrimage in Mecca, to make the Hajj. And came back many times over and never had not one loss of life or any kind of casualty there. So they had a vision of accomplishment. They followed him. He had a vision. We see that in many other folks that had vision as we go to people like a Harriet Tubman. She had a vision. Harriet Tubman said, I could have freed 1,000 more slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more of my people if only they knew they were a slave. So they didn't, they thought they were all right living with the master. But she did not have one casualty. Not one casualty. You had to backtrack, hold up guns, shoot back at the master's henchmen who were chasing everything else, and got them free all the way up to the New York border, Rochester, and then beyond into Canada. All the way from Maryland. That's a long trip. On foot. They didn't have horses. On foot she did this. People like Denmark Vesey. Now these were religious people who had a vision and who had all kinds of uprisings. Nat Turner. They don't talk about Nat Turner too much. Nat Turner was a preacher. He had a vision. You know, he had a vision about his people, you know, and he said, man, look, we're gonna do what we have to do to be free. Even had a white man. A lot of people forget about John Brown. They got a song about him. John Brown, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Him and his sons were killed, were hung, because they were abolitionists. Coming from the word to abolish. They wanted to abolish slavery. And they were there. Frederick Douglass, visionary. Freedom had a vision about where he's going to go. So we go. I mean, that's centuries ago. A couple of centuries ago, all this was happening. In the 19th century. So then we have a person, though today we disagree with the aqidah of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but he had a vision. He saw certain things. You know, it's a little misunderstood, but he had a vision of economics and picking people up. Then come a Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and then we get Imam W.D. Muhammad, who had a vision. I mean, you got to think about it. Imam W.D. Muhammad made a radical move. That was a radical Islamic move. It was a revolutionary move. That's what revolution means. It's a radical change of something. You can have evolution. And I heard an imam say one time, one of my teachers, Sheikh Tawfiq, he said, a revolution is evolution sped up. Because evolution is going to be a change. Eventually, you know, we're going to evolve. We've personally had our evolutions from the time we were born, as I just mentioned, to the time we became senior citizens or junior citizens. So this revolution of a radical change without bloodshed. Without bloodshed. Nobody got beat up. Nobody got hurt. We went our way and then erupted, you know, the continuance of the Nation of Islam under, you know, Minister Farrakhan. But we don't see him, he's still our brother. We don't see him as an enemy to us. You know? And that's what a lot of Muslims, you know, they become so self-righteous. Oh, he don't have the right aqidah. Well, he got Juma being held now. We got brothers in the nation here coming here for Juma. He's holding Juma. He doesn't do it himself. He still calls himself the minister. You know, and as, you know, he's the minister, and they have other, as we know, student ministers around him. But then you got a brother that's an imam that's in Masjid Mariam in Chicago having Juma right now. And he's with the other brothers of the community of Iwari Muhammad, other brothers, and they meet and they talk and they exchange information. So, who are we to judge? Who are we to judge when Allah, who Allah? He's the ultimate knower, the ultimate judge. So we have these visionaries. And then we got to look at ourselves. What vision, not that we have to look at one single person, what vision are we looking toward? And that first in the vision is that we encourage each other to make our prayers. We came here today. This is one of the most important prayers. This day is bigger than the two Eids, the Eid al-Fitr and the Eid al-Adha. And they are larger, but Juma is bigger. In the Quran, in Surah Al-Juma, it says, when the call to prayer is made, cut off all business. So the call was made. It's made 2 times before I got up here to make the khutbah. And the comment would be established after I finish this khutbah. And this khutbah represents the first 2 rakats of the 4 rakats that we make when we make Salatul Dhuhr. So it's not called Salatul Dhuhr, it's Salatul Jummah, so we make only 2 rakats. The first 2 is listening to the khutbah, listening to the word of Allah, listening to the examples of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how do we impose this upon ourselves? We have vision. You know, we must understand that we don't have all the answers, but we're still searching for answers. And as we search for answers, it's about the journey. sometimes people only look at the destination. You'll see people, well, you got to do good. You got to do the good things, or Allah will punish you. You hear these sisters and brothers, I call them the hadith and the mouths of punishment. How are you going to punish somebody when Allah knows what your punishment is? He knows what your mercy is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu Ra'ufu Rahim. Allahu Ra'ufu Rahim. Meaning Allah is often of His mercy. Often as He gives mercy. So often He gives mercy much more, 1,000 times more than He talks about His punishment. Yes, the punishment is there. The punishment is there if you're a hypocrite. But He talks more about that. Inshallah, let us understand this call of making our prayers religiously. Making our prayers, being conscious of them. And you know, in the Quran it states, and I said to you before, you can make your prayers sitting, standing, riding. When you're traveling, Allah makes it easy. You got to go over 48 miles. Well, let's consider that, you know. But if it's a hard trip and you're over 48 miles, you can cut your prayers in half. Only two you don't break cut in half is Salatul Fajr, which is a congregational prayer, and Salatul Maghrib. But the others are cut in half. And you can combine them. So therefore, if you're in the time of Isha and if you're in the time of Salatul Dhuhr and Salatul Asr, you can make two, call it common, and then make two again. And then for Maghrib, you can make the 3 rakats, and then you can make 2 again. So Allah makes it easy. This way of life for us, I don't want to just call it religion, it's easy. Who makes it difficult? We do. We do. We put burdens on ourselves. Allah doesn't put any burden on you greater than you can bear. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر حول قوة إلا بالله العلي. Let me go back to you for a minute to show you how Allah always gives you the help that you need. You know, as the Prophet Muhammad, well, let me go before the Prophet Muhammad. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Ibrahim had his vision. You know what that vision of. You see the stars, the moon, everything else. But later on in life, Ibrahim received help from his wife Hagar and his wife Sarah. He received help. And he prayed to Allah that he would have a progeny, which was Ismail, his first son, and Isaac, to help him push or to flourish this vision that he had from Allah to all of humanity. So even though we may not be the loins of Ibrahim, as some people may say, we are the spiritual seed of Abraham. Let's look at Moses for a minute. Musa alayhi salam, Allah gave him Harun, Aaron, because Musa had a stuttering problem. He had serious stutter. And he couldn't articulate things. But Allah chose him because of his intellect and because of his faith. He was the man to take his people, Bani Israel, who were Muslims, out of slavery and to talk about the one God. And so he had Harun to assist him. And so Harun was also a prophet. Isa ibn Maryam, Allah gave him 12 people to help him out. They were fishermen, carpenters, all kind of stuff. You know, they were just regular lay people. They weren't engineers and all that. They weren't engineers. They were just lay people trying to make a living. And Allah blessed them to have them around him. what happened after his death? Not the death on the cross we're talking about, as others say he died, but Isa had children, had a full life. And there were others that went on and gave the message of those disciples. The message of one God. One God. The Christians believe in monotheism. The Holy Trinity didn't come until 300 years after the death of Christ. So there was a group of people that got together in the Byzantine Empire, and they said, well, you know what? We're going to develop this Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. And I'm not knocking them, but I just want to let you know that those first Christians believed in one God. It wasn't a Holy Trinity, and which took place, which had changed what the religion was. And there's some Christians today, they call themselves Universalists, Unitarians. They believe in one God, and they reject the Holy Trinity. Just for your information. The Universalists. Now, so we talk about visionaries. Now, when you think about a visionary, let's think about even someone who's a camper or Boy Scout. Usually you find people have a big flashlight, and that person holds the flashlight throughout the woods. And other people follow behind them. If they have only one flashlight, that person becomes the light, or has the lantern, which means he or she becomes the beacon of information, the beacon of setting an example to the rest of the body. And the head can't operate with other parts of the body. All the body parts, everybody has a special job that they do, and they do it well. I think I was looking at a commentary, and this commentary came from somebody who was a doctor on a TV program called MASH or NASH or something like that. And one of the doctors said, you know, what I do one thing, and I do it well, and I perform it. Something like that nature. I may have that quote. But the point is, if we do what we do well, and everybody gets together and do what they do well, then we have something of a unit. If I box with just my hands like this, nothing's going to happen with an open hand. But if I box and had my fists together, I have strength. And that's what it means with us as a people. You know, in scriptures, it talks about Jacob or Yaqub. And Yaqub was getting ready to die. He was on his deathbed. And he called his sons together, all of his sons. He had 12 of them. The oldest was Reuben, the youngest one was Benjamin, before him was Joseph. But he called his sons together, and he talked over and over again in the Quran about unity and having them gather together